Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to a continuation of our fascinating, really, and interesting video series concerning Muhammad. We called it Muhammad, a Critique. Last time, Dr. J shared his reactions to some of the sources that talk about Muhammad from an Islamic standpoint, when he became a prophet, where did he come from, which years, when he was born, and all that kind of stuff. Today, we're going to take a look at the Western scholars' reactions to these Islamic sources. With me here in studio, as always, is Dr. J. Smith to unpack all of that. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, when we ended, let's go to the slides. We were looking at really my reactions, and I had these questions. Why is it this has been so late? Goodness sakes, they had lots of people that knew how to read and write. Why in the world would God choose Arabic, and why would he choose a prophet who couldn't read and write? And for heaven's sakes, he had 22 years to learn to read and write. Now, that's my problems. But what about the Western scholars? Because the Western scholars do have their concerns. People like Michael Cook says this: if knowledge of the life of Muhammad was transmitted orally for a century before it was reduced to writing, then the chances are that the material will have undergone considerable alteration in the process. Rubin, another scholar, goes on and he says he examined how the image of the prophet was perceived by believers throughout the various evolving versions of his life. The contents of the texts are a reflection, he said, of the state of mind of the believers among whom the text was created, preserved, and circulated over the ages. He noticed that the medieval Islam was preoccupied with portraying its prophet in a manner comparable to the biblical prophets. They wanted the same thing that had come before. Biblical themes were adopted from the stories of the prophets, adapted to fit an Arabian situation, and applied to the biography of Muhammad.
It was embellished, basically.
Because you have a rubric that's already there. It's a good rubric. It's already a good narrative. Why don't we use the same narratives? What's going on? Let's go back to Rubin. So he says, take the example of the Battle of Badr. Al-Miqdad provides the same responses regarding the children of Israel, contrasting their inferiority against the superiority of the Arabs. And then he says, the entire Arabian Ummah as one collective group constitutes here the new chosen community that replaces the children of Israel. So they're the next progression, is what he's saying. It makes sense.
And if I may interject something, and I think we talked about this in the past, this really puts the emphasis on the Jerusalem thesis, or at least the fact that Christian Jews have a lot of influence to do with what we learn today about Muhammad.
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah. And that's why they know that they are derived from the Jewish Christian milieu. They want the same thing that had happened before, because if it is God, he would act the same way. So they would want on their man what the earlier prophets had.
That's right.
Now, here's where the stumbling block is. And the one who really puts this up is Dr. John Wansbrough. Let's go to the slide again. Dr. Wansbrough from America, though he was head of the School of Oriental and African Studies there in the University of London. And he wrote 2 books, Quranic Studies, The Sources, Methods of Scriptural Interpretation in 1977, and The Sectarian Milieu, Content and Composition of Islamic Salvation History in 1978. When he looked at that, he said, hold on a minute, take a look at the Quran, take a look at these stories. Take a look at these stories specifically about this prophet doing these things at this place at that time. That time did not make any sense. These stories are from much further north. They're from much later. They're actually, we know where these original material come from, and they're way up in the north, what we would know as Syria and Jordan and Iraq. Have we said this before, you and I?
Yeah.
But he was saying this way back in the 1970s. Let's go back to the slide. His conclusion: the compilers took their material from collections compiled within the decades around 800 AD. Look at that date. Muhammad died in 632.
We're talking over 200 years, almost 200 years.
Almost 200 years later.
Yeah.
And not from any documents which were written in the 7th century, and certainly not from the person of Muhammad or his companions. The Maghazi, which are the earliest documentation, stories of the Prophet's battles and campaigns, are the earliest Muslim documents which we possess. They should have given us the best snapshot of that time. Yet they tell us little concerning the Prophet's life or teaching. In fact, oddly enough, nowhere in these documents is there a veneration of Muhammad as a prophet. Remember, Al-Waqidi is the one that wrote this down, the Maghazi documents.
Talks about someone who was a warrior.
That's it. Yeah. That's all it does. It doesn't say about his veneration of prophet. It doesn't say about his receiving the Quran. It doesn't even say much of anything other than the fact that battle after battle after battle after battle. Again, that's what he brings up. Now, let's go back and let's look at the next one, who is Michael Cook. Michael Cook in 1983. He talks about Ibn Ishaq, who we know died around 765 according to the traditions. And he says, interesting, look at Abdullah, the father of Muhammad. What Ibn Ishaq tells us is that Abdullah died early enough to leave Muhammad an orphan, but as to the specific details of his death, God knew best. Cook brings this out. Now, hold on a minute, Cook says. When you get to Waqidi, who is the next century, he dies in 735, Waqidi, with the Maghazi documents, not only, this is around 50 to 70 years later, he tells us when Muhammad died, how he died, where he died, what his age was, and in the exact place of his burial. So the conclusion that Cook comes up with, this evolution in the course of half a century or more, from uncertainty to a profusion of precise detail, suggests that a fair amount of what Waqidi knew was not knowledge. This is embellishment as of the time. We know this, the great, and Cook goes on and talks about Bukhari. And we know what's going on here because according to the tradition, Al-Bukhari was given 600,000 of these stories about Muhammad.
He filtered them all the way down
to 7,397. Right. So he throws out 98%.
With some repetitions also.
Yeah, about 2,762 non-repetitious material. That's the difficulty here. Let's now go to Patricia Crone, the next one I'm going to bring up. Patricia Crone reads and writes 15 languages, and she is amazing because she goes back to the original documentation. That's why she's so dangerous. And she looks at this. She looks at this one account. Now, it talks about these qusas. These are these
stories.
Storytellers is what they are.
Yeah.
As storyteller, she says, followed upon storyteller, the recollection of the past was reduced to a common stock of stories, themes, and motifs that could be combined and recombined in a profusion of apparently factual accounts. Each combination and recombination would generate new details, and as spurious information accumulated, genuine information would be lost. In the absence of an alternative tradition, early scholars were forced to rely on the tales of storytellers, as did Ibn Ishaq, Waqidi, and other historians. It is because they relied on the same repertoire of tales that they all said such similar things. Look at the screen. Here is an example. Take a look at this that I'm putting up there right now. On Al-Tabari, she says, look at Al-Tabari. Look at these conflicting accounts of this child, Muhammad, as his child, meeting with a religious man. According to Ibn Hisham, it happened during his infancy. According to Ibn Hisham later on, it happened when he was 9 years old. According to Ibn Sa'd, it happened when he was 12 years old. According to Ibn Hisham again, it happened when he was 25. So Ibn Hisham himself contradicts himself 3 times. Who is it that he saw? Well, according to Ibn Hisham, it was an Ethiopian Christian. According to Abd al-Razak, it was a Jew. No, according to al-Razak, it was actually a seer. And then Ibn Sa'd says it was a kahin. So can you see, already you're getting all these conflicts that Al-Tabari puts out there. That's why we love Al-Tabari. And where did it happen? Well, according to al-Razak, it happened in Mecca. According to Abu Nu'aym, it happened in Ukaz. Then he contradicts himself. No, it actually happened in Du al-Majaz. So conclusion that Crone comes up with, what we have here are nothing more than 15 equally fictitious versions of events that never took place. And I'm going to end with Yehuda Nevo, who died in 1994. And his great tome, when you look and see it, and you all have to get this, this is Jerusalem Studies in Arabic and Islam. And he talks in the book called Toward a Prehistory of Islam, Volume 17, Hebrew University. He looks at the Arabic inscriptions found in the Arabian desert from the mid to late 7th century. And they notice that they say nothing about a people called Muslim, nor a religion known as Islam, nor a revelation called the Qur'an. Yet they should, because we do know that these Arabs did refer to themselves. They call themselves Haggarites, which are the people of Hagar. They call themselves Haggarites, which is the people of Hagar again. They call themselves Ishmaelites, which is the son of Hagar. They call them Muhajirun, people of Hajar or Hagar. Un means masculine plural. And they were called Saracens. So those are the 5 names we get. But as Nevo says, we don't find anybody call themselves Muslims. Not in the 7th century. Not until way into the 8th century is this brought out. When you look at the Caliphal protocols, he says, between the Sufyani and early Marwanid periods up to the time of Abd al-Malik, we have no reference to Muhammad as a prophet or a reference to the Shahada until 691. And even the Muhammadan formula that we do get, which is introduced by Abdul Malik in 691 and 692, it's not Muhammad.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting. We're going to get to that. That's yet to come.
I mean, what if, I'm just throwing this out there, just came to my mind. What if Al-Waqidi was trying to record to us about maybe someone who is from the Arab clans, did help the Arab tribes to expand their territory. At a later time, someone like Abdul Malik realized, hey, we want to give credit to this person that we have a dynasty now based on their hard work, but we want to also make ourselves look presentable to the others as well. We have Jews, we have Christians, they have prophets, we don't have any. They have scripture, we don't have any. And all of a sudden you have now a genre of things attributed to a person with a title, actually, the praised one.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And you are getting to it, but hold on, because now with the next segment, we're going to go and ask an even deeper question. Okay, let's talk about Al-Tabari. Let's talk about Ibn Hisham. Let's talk about Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Ibn Dawud, Majah, Najai, Tirmidhi. Let's talk about all of these Islamic traditional writers. Why would they have written what they wrote? Why did they write so late? But let's take it even one step further. When did they write this material down?
That's right.
As you're going to find out, this had nothing to do with Al-Tabari or Hisham or Waqidi or anything to do with Bukhari. We don't even know if these guys even exist, but that's coming. That's
where we're
next.
going to go from here?
That's what we're going to do into next. We're going to start getting into the meat of all of this new research. All righty? Let's go.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. This is Al Fadi, over and out. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment. And ring the bell so you will be notified when we release new content. Our mission is to reach Muslims with the gospel of Jesus Christ and help Christians engage with their Muslim neighbors. If you want to join us in this life-changing work, please support us on patreon.com/CIRA International, or just click on the link below.